All right. Good afternoon or good morning, good evening, good night. What was that? The Truman Show or whatever that was. You had a nice little phrase for that. I think that fits for our global client base here. I'm hoping everyone can follow along here, whether you're on one of the social media sites or even watching this later. Hopefully this gets pushed out properly. Adam's not able to make it today, so you're just going to get me. We tried wrangling Richard in to join us, but he bailed on me last minute. So a washy guy. I think it's those bald bearded guys. Sometimes you just never know what they're going to do. So anyway, we will jump in today. As we get ready for today's session, you know, it's a little bit of a switch. Adam usually leads these. I'm kind of along for technical support, if nothing else. And you know, we're going to switch it up. Richard's going to join me today. All of that gets turned upside down. Some of it happening, you know, rather quickly, but there's no big drama. There's no big worry because we have this planned out. I know we've mentioned this many, many times before about our annual roadmap and what we do with these community updates, but I keep bringing it up because it just works. And I really want to emphasize this to you guys. And have a plan on your engagements. So I sat down here, got ready. I mean, my biggest challenge here was to make sure I could get the intro loop playing on the stream here when it started. That was the biggest challenge I had to worry about today because everything that we're going to talk about has already been scoped out. We already have an idea for it. There was reference stuff. I watched just briefly. I skipped through it. There was the video out there for this session last year. So had a few reference points, already decided I'm going to do something different, right? But it's already out there. And here's the beauty of these sort of plays. You don't have to script things out word by word, okay? You're not writing a theater script for high school production, right? We don't need to tell people what to say. We need to give direction. We need to provide the goals and the purpose for these engagements. And your staff and your team can step in. They can use their strong suits, their skills, and they can deliver this really, really well. So I call these all the time, you know, when we're talking about them in reference to using our portal. We have the client engagement scoring module, and these are our plays in our playbooks. And the idea is your executive team can call the play, then build the playbook, and then the tool will call the play from the sideline. And we're not going to tell people take 2 steps here, 3 steps this direction. We're going to say, hey, here's the play, here's the objective, and let your team run with those. So there's a bit of a long intro. I'll try to wrap it up today. My goal is always to make these shorter than when Adam and I do them together. All right. I don't know why. I'm like, you know, if nothing else, I can give you a little bit more time back on your calendar, as hopefully many of you have blocked this time out every week so you can join us when you're available. But we'll jump in today talking about architecture assessments. We're going to be continuing our conversation. We talked about it just a little bit last week, but we really want to kind of dive in a little bit deeper. What do we want to understand? What do we want to accomplish with these architecture audits? Now, this is always a great opportunity for me to set expectations with our gap analysis tool. And I like to emphasize that it is a gap analysis tool. If you're expecting a detailed report, a scan of every port, this is not the report that we're looking for. All right. We are wanting to identify where our clients are at and where they need to go in the future. All right. And that future looking element is the critical part of these reports. So keep that in mind as you go through and work on these. I know, and I speak from personal experience here, so I'm not bashing anybody here. I know as we go through there, sometimes we're thinking, oh, I need to catalog this. I need to list all of these items there. I want to know how many, whatever. You know, back many years ago, Cisco released a 1U blade that had a ridiculous number of DIM slots. It was like 32 DIM slots or something for a server. and you could just throw tons of stuff at. We thought that was the coolest thing. All right. And so it kind of goes to my standard joke. We don't really need to know how many free DIM slots there are in the server. That's not what we're looking for. We want to know, do they have the solutions that match their business goals? And whether we're doing these on architecture, service, risk, however we're diving into these, that's always going to be the goal of our gap analysis. But the architecture is a great place to start. We want to dig in there. We want to understand what they have. And there's an important element to remember a little bit later on. You want to make sure you have your architecture well in hand before you dive perhaps too deeply, at least, into some of these service elements. Right? In our framework, architecture is meant to categorize the technology that they have, what is in place. When we move into the services pillar, then we're going to be talking more about how they are using it. And if we get ahead of ourselves, we'll find ourselves talking about services, saying they need to be doing some activity, some function, but they don't have the tool, the technology in place to actually do it. So we can make tons of effort and, set goals and expectations and, ding them on scores and whatever, saying, hey, you aren't doing these things. But if they don't have the tools in place to do it, it really doesn't matter. So architecture is a great place to start to make sure your clients have everything they need to support their business, to meet their goals, and to be supported by you. All right. There's an important element in here. It's not just self-serving. Okay. It is. Okay. It does serve you. You want your clients to have all of these things because you're able to make money off them. But there's another element. If they are properly inventoried or populated with the solutions that their business needs, and you're able to manage those and work those well, then what's going to happen is there's going to be a productive environment. Their technology is going to work well for them. They're going to be able to do the things they need to do and be successful. At the same time, it allows you to do the things that you need to do and be successful. So this really is a win-win situation when we align stack with our clients' business needs. All right, let's jump into it. I'm going to dive in and give us a little bit of a walkthrough of just a few things in one of our architecture reports. So I dug up an old one here. It's a bit out of date. I think I was in here trying to update this earlier. So we'll find a few things in here that might not line up with the time frames, but it's all good information. At one point, we were using this to, do some other stuff, and I ended up writing a bunch of fictional things in here. So some of it's kind of cool, and I want to capitalize on that. So I'm diving into our architecture assessment here. By the way, that was the 2.0 version. We do have the 2.5 version of the reports, and those are available. I'll show you guys here in just a few minutes about how to get those updates if you don't have them. If you're a recent member with us, those are already applied. If you've been with us for a little while, I can show you how to make sure you get those updates into your portal. All right, so standard report template here. We can modify this, customize these as much as we need, but let's jump down here into the meat of it. I think I had some notes down here. So we're going to tackle this one. This is actually a really good section to dive into here. We've identified where they are and where they want to go. All right. Remember, we're almost always going to be less than 100 for their total score. All right. If your client is out at 100, that means you're telling them you need everything, absolutely everything that's available through us, or maybe even a few things that aren't available through you. And I would argue that that's probably not realistic. All right. Even larger, more advanced companies don't need absolutely everything. They need what their business needs. And don't forget, that is a critical value point in this tool, is it allows us to define what is important for this client. So they're not too far, I would say, off. There's always going to be a gap here for the most part. If nothing else, technology is always advancing, and we're struggling sometimes just to keep up with the gap. So I don't think we're going to run out of anything to do. We're not worried about job security here. But let's dive into this. We can see that their data and storage protection is one of our categories here. It has the biggest gap. And so in my mind, if I'm looking at this, I'm saying, let's prioritize this one. Data and storage protection and physical management both have very significant gaps. So we should probably start looking at those a little bit more closely. So let's dive down into this one. There's a few things I have taken out of this. All right. They don't have a storage array. All right. I think there's even a note here. All cloud storage or direct attached storage. All right. So I made a little note in here, and then I said, we don't really need to bring that in. That doesn't need to be part of our score calculations because it doesn't apply to them. Right. So we're able to overbuild our templates a little bit and apply these as specifically needed with our clients. Storage environment. But now we're getting in here some details, backups. All right. We've got some notes. All right. Their solution is not very good. All right. It looks like, Google Drive, USB sticks. This is not a good situation. Yes, there are technically some backups out there, but that's not something we want to manage. So we're recommending a future state, and it gives us a recommended product here. We keep going. We can get, so this is a ranked statement. This one is a series of characteristics. Again, if you want, we can have notes in here. Sometimes these are really helpful. Like this is a really good, actually, business objective here. The client wants at least 4 hours of runtime. Right? How much runtime should your clients have? It's an open-ended question. All right. You may think, oh, I always want an hour. I always want 15 minutes is our standard response, or it could vary dramatically. And what we really need to understand is how much runtime does the client need? What is required for their business? What is their expectation when the lights go off? Right? Is it just, PCs won't reboot, and if the lights are off more than a few seconds, then yeah, things are gonna go down? Or do they want to sit there and work in the dark for hours on end because they're there and they're going to get the things done? All right. Again, all of those vary depending on your client's expectations. So when we delegate these, and I commonly recommend that people delegate when possible. You may want to go through, if you're sitting in the account manager role, you may go through and fill these out, but don't hesitate to leverage the power of your team. All right. Your ops team, they many times can go through, fill these out extremely quickly. They know all this information off the top of their head. They may not always know what the recommendation is. They might not know that the client wants 4 hours of runtime, right? But they can at least define the current state for you, and then allows you to come in with the conversations that you're having with your clients to better understand what the future state needs to be. They're documenting information here. All sorts of little things can get added into these so that we build an overall picture of where we want our clients to be. All right. I didn't want to dive into this too much because I'll get really technical, but I did want to make sure that we showcase, what our objective here. We want to understand what our clients have, generally speaking, but more importantly, we want to compare that to what they need in the future. Right? If their environment is in good condition, if they have most of the things that they need, then we don't need to spend a lot of time talking about the things that they already have and are already up and running. I think many times we spend an inordinate amount of time perhaps talking about things in the past that don't need to be talked about. If you have a ton of machines that are under some sort of warranty, they have all of their patches, everything is in compliance, they're meeting the depreciation standards for the organization, why do you spend so much time talking about them? And you may think, well, we don't, but I'd challenge you to check yourself, because I have sat in many, many client meetings where we think we're going to just review, but the leading elements in those conversations are everything that's out there, the status of those, whether it's anything that needs to be discussed or not. And we think, oh, we're just going to do a quick 2-minute overview. And 40 minutes later, we're moving on to topic number 1 in our agenda because we spent so much time talking about things that didn't need to be talked about. So check those, make sure that you have the right expectations. What you're getting out of your architecture assessments are, where does our client need to go? What things do we need to be putting on the roadmap for them so that we can begin meeting their needs and helping them meet their business goals, be really successful. Let me talk a little bit more. I think I'll save a few other things about the project roadmap and how we manage and work with that for next week. I like getting Adam in on those. Again, some of those bigger pictures. I think it's pretty cool to hear a couple different perspectives about how you would implement those and the types of discussions that you'll have with your clients. But let me highlight something here right quick. If I can navigate the tool here again. There's a really important element that I encourage you to make sure you're utilizing, and that is for every future state recommendation, the tool will automatically recommend a project. Now, you can go into the templates actually, and you can delete this recommendation. Certainly you can change it, you can customize it. That's ideal. There's a less ideal situation where you can actually go in there and make it blank. And we want to provide the flexibility. There are a few kind of rarefied cases where a standardized recommendation wouldn't be appropriate, so the tool supports that. But standard wise, you always want a recommendation to pop up here. And that's going to give you the ability to hit that little blue plus sign right there, right? That adds it to the project roadmap. And that allows you to have the budgeting, the planning conversations, the execution, the work in progress, all of that sort of conversation. And then once you complete that project, we're going to get that indication right here that says, hey, we have completed this firewall solution. Why don't we reevaluate our gap analysis here? Why don't we check and see? And if it meets our expectation, we're going to move this from future state to current state. Now, the really cool thing about closing this loop here about assessing, recommending, road mapping, and then coming back and reassessing this is, as we do this, as your clients spend money with you, these numbers are going to change. If they've completed this project and now this has become a current state, all right, we can see that now we're meeting expectations. The scenario that you don't want to end up in is your clients spend, you do a gap analysis, and then your clients start working a bunch of projects with you, got things going on, and you come back 6-9 months later and you want to have a review, but you look at the scores and nothing has changed. You haven't moved the needle at all. And your client may have spent thousands of dollars with you. You definitely want to be able to show them, as they do the things that you're recommending, as you're meeting their business needs, we're also moving the needle on the scores. And again, back to the scores, I tell everybody the numbers don't really matter, okay? We've got lots of ideas on how we could change that up. And my leading idea always has something to do with getting rid of the numbers altogether, right? What I'm really, really focused on is, what is the gap? All right. How big a gap? Well, what I need to close that gap, whether it's 50 or 150, and we can come up with random scores. Maybe you ought to make this a hexadecimal number or something, so nobody can know really what it means just by looking at it. But we just want to say, hey, this is where you are, and this is where you need to be. The numbers do kind of help us, in one visual aspect, see how big those gaps are. But at the end of the day, we just want to identify what our clients need going forward. All right, we're hitting the 20-minute mark. I'm going to try to hang with my goals here and make this a short meeting for everyone. I didn't talk about the updates. If you need the updates, reach out to me. You can reach me, Skip, at humanizeit.biz, or hit us up in the chat window on the platform, and we can make sure you get those updates in there. We do have a new one for Microsoft assessment. That one's available as well. Minor tweaks to that one. Mostly we're just trying to keep up with Microsoft's constant change of logos and videos and names. They keep changing the names on all these things. So not anything too dramatic there, but hopefully it is more in line with what Microsoft has currently. May not apply tomorrow. Who knows? It's Microsoft, right? That being said, I'll try to wrap up our session today. I appreciate all of you for joining us. Richard, I did see your comment come through. I'm glad we got at least a few folks joining. It is kind of weird not being able to see everybody as much as we used to, but I know we're hitting a lot more platforms out there. So that seems to be working well for you guys. We look forward to talking to you. And if you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out, and we will see you guys soon. Thank you so much.